Final Fantasy XVI is a super Tuscan, but before I get into that, let me get my tasting notes for this wine out of the way. This is a 2016 Podere Le Rippi Amore e Folia Toscana Rosso from the Toscana region of Italy. The color is deep ruby and it is made from 90% Syrah, 5% Merlot, and 5% Sangiovese grapes. It has an ABV of 14.5% and it cost me around $100, so this is a special occasion wine to go with a special occasion video game. Aromas of red fruit, black pepper, spice, and leather. On the palate, sour cherry, oak, and plum. This wine is very dry, full-bodied, with good acidity and a long finish. I recommend decanting for 1 to 2 hours to let it really open up. Now let's get into why I'm pairing it with Final Fantasy XVI. The wine's name, Amore e Folia, translates to love and madness. If that doesn't match what some are calling Game of Final Fantasy, I don't know what does. You should have thought about that. There's an old adage about really knowing rules so that you can break them. There are probably thousands of versions, attributed to just as many people. My favorite version, though, is this one from Sen no Rikyu, the famous 16th century Japanese tea master. Observe the standards and rules of form to the limit, and though you may break them or depart from them, never forget the principles. Final Fantasy was originally released in Japan in 1987 on the Famicom, known as the Nintendo Entertainment System or NES, in the West. In addition to the 16 mainline entries in the series, there are over 100 spin-offs, remasters, re-releases, and whatever else. This is a seriously established brand, and no matter which game you play, you know what to expect. Over the years, many argue that the series has lost its luster. The gameplay has stagnated, the stories are dull, and it's just missing that certain something. The thing is, no one seems to be able to agree on what that certain something is. So Square Enix handed development of 16 over to Naoki Yoshida, director and producer of the MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV Online. Yoshida, affectionately known as Yoshi P, turned 14 from one of the worst games ever to one of the best games in the series, and I can only assume that since the last few single-player Final Fantasy games weren't as successful as Square Enix wanted, they asked him to work on it. So he took the Final Fantasy formula and did his magic on it. He changed so much of what we expect from a Final Fantasy game. Most notably, he went full action on the gameplay, and the story has a firm M rating, with sex, swearing, and a grittiness rarely seen in any previous Final Fantasy game. And holy shit, he nailed it. Although this isn't your mom's Final Fantasy, it still feels like Final Fantasy. It's got the storytelling, the incredible music, seriously Masayoshi Soken is a god, chocobos, and Moogles. It is missing cactars and tonberries among other things though, but I'm okay with sacrifices if it means a better product. Which leads me to the wine. In the 1960s, Italy decided to follow France's lead and establish an appellation for its wines from Chianti, Denominazione di Origine Controllata or DOC. An appellation is basically a legally defined area of where grapes for a wine are grown. In the case of Chianti, it also specified the grape blend and how it was produced. At the time, Chianti was most commonly a blend of 70% Sangiovese, 15% Canaiolo, and 15% Trebbiano, a white grape. Blending white grapes into Chianti was often used to increase the volume of wine produced, but it led to a decrease in wine quality. So many winemakers decided to experiment with different grapes and blends in order to bring back that quality. Instead of sticking with the tried-and-true boring blend of grapes, they blended the Sangiovese with grapes commonly used in Bordeaux wines like Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot. Now, since they were no longer following the rules of the Chianti appellation, these wines were relegated to the status of vino da tavola, or table wine, even though the quality was way higher, and Americans loved them. So because of our penchant for making nicknames for everything, these wines became known as Super Tuscans. Thankfully, in 1992, a new appellation was created specifically for these wines, Indicazione Geografica Tipica, or IGT. So just like how winemakers in Tuscany rebelled against the DOC, Final Fantasy XVI rebelled against its previously numbered titles. Super Tuscans are some of my absolute favorite wines out there, and Final Fantasy is my favorite game franchise. I highly recommend checking out both. Cheers!